What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a look over here at the altcoin market after the dramatic price action that we had on Friday and Saturday, where we witnessed really the biggest combined liquidation event that we've seen in the cryptocurrency market in history. Bigger than FTX, bigger than August of last year. Combined, those 2 days were absolutely massive. And well, what do you know? It happens right off that 702 Fibonacci retracement, which stopped the price back on March 13th. It's been a long month and a half here on the YouTube channel talking about this, the concerns of that 702 retracement. Finally got to see them manifest themselves. Hasn't been a whole lot of fun here on this channel talking about it all the time. I know it hasn't been fun for you guys. The excitement of the market was out there. People hooting, hollering, screaming for big runs. But of course, that big concern sitting there. We've talked about a correction coming in here. And boy, even surprised me how fast it ended up showing up in here after talking about it all last week and even putting a video out about it last week. Boom, just like that, all the liquidation set in. But fortunately from me, there's a little bit more optimism to start talking about here in the market rather than all those concerns that we've had, because there's been a couple of things that have happened here that make me look at it from a brighter side. Been very concerned for the last month and a half. But now we've seen price action in this market that is very familiar, and we even witnessed things play out the way we talked about all last week when we were talking about this corrective structure, thinking that this market had somewhat of a little bit of responsibility in it. But no, the leverage absolutely completely out of control, but still the market behaved really, for the final conclusion of it, the exact thing we had talked about in here. And so I'll talk about that. What brings me a whole lot of optimism in here is that we talk about in crashes, and especially in like these ABC style crashes happening in here, is that a lot of times when we get down to the low, we talked about this last week in the video, we talked about it in Markets in the Morning, is that most people do become convinced that that is actually the bottom. It becomes the first sign of life that shows up after something dramatic happens, and people become convinced that this is the actual low. And then what eventually ends up coming after that is eventually the final plunge. And the thing we talked about a lot last week is that many times they get associated with narratives. So throughout the weekend, when we had that big move happen on Friday, it was very intriguing. I thought to myself, man, I've got a couple of weeks to be able to start thinking about what it is I want to be adding to my bags. Boom, the liquidation happens. It's like, oops, I don't have that much time at all. I'm scrambling throughout the weekend trying to figure out what are the things that I'm wanting to add to my bag. Do I want to replenish a lot of the stuff that I sold, or is it somewhere else that I want to end up going? And it became a mad dash scramble, but still having to hold off tightly, waiting on it to say, you know, we usually get that next flush. It usually ends up happening. And what do you know? We do get a narrative to go with here. That, what we explained it and characterized it is last week, is that it creates this environment where retail is incredibly scared to buy. That typically is what happens with that particular narrative. When you get that final flush is when the bottom comes in. There's a reason not to buy it. And so throughout the weekend, of course, what happened? The big concerns out there about war happening. Everybody posting over there on Twitter, oh no, war's kicking in. People posting, look at this. The timing of this is happening exactly as this is happening. And what does that do? It creates an incredibly uncertain environment, right? And you can't blame people for feeling that way in that moment where there's an uncertain environment, not sure what to do in that because the circumstances are crazy. But had we not talked about it a lot to be like, okay, structurally, we should be seeing another dip after this. This is the fake one. And then all the discussion on typically there's a narrative that comes with it. And for a little bit of a refresher, I'll play this little clip from the last video that I put out just 4 days ago. So for me, back at the retracements, I built a very nice cash pile. I've been sitting on the sidelines with that cash, wondering, am I going to end up throwing it in because Ethereum is going to end up breaking above all retracement levels and get going, or if the altcoin market's going to go, or if we're going to crash, where would it be? Where would a place be that I would end up entering it in? And right now, I see a setup that's coming that leads me to be pretty optimistic. That is likely where it's going in at. But we still are just going to be in a hold period waiting for this to come. And to kind of mentally prepare for it is the way I'm looking at it, that this is what a continuation structure looks like. However, we haven't gotten through the nasty part of it yet, and that's approaching soon, whether that's a week, 2 weeks, 3, 4, 5, whatever. That's typically the next phase of this. And so as we get closer to it and as time comes, if we start to see it emerge, the thing we're really going to be looking for in here when we start heading down, if that happens, is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to look for a bounce to show up in here where everybody's going to think the bottom is in. Then there's going to be one more flush that'll scare the crud out of the market, and that'll be it. And then all eyes on the market caps to see, can we break it? So I'm very optimistic on what I see in regards to a continuation structure emerging from this correction, which hopefully is welcomed as a change of tune because I've been so uneasy here. So on a longer time frame, I'm a little bit more optimistic than I have been, but on a shorter time frame of right now, I think we're going to work our way into a correction that's going to scare the market a little bit. But for those who have cash on the sidelines and been waiting for this moment, it's probably going to be an opportunity, and it will be for me. And when it happened, I posted right over here on Twitter, got cash, me too, but it's fading as I'm starting to accumulate these levels. 702 rejected it violently, a constant concern. We watched it for months. It wasn't fun for me or you. I saw the viewer numbers. Now we can return to looking for optimism and reversals up. Then posted right after that with the screenshot. Since I wasn't home, I typically do not post screenshots from my phone, but I had no choice because of what was happening in the thick of the moment. That I said, unfortunately, I'm not home, so you're getting the classic chart from phone for this one. Not sure I've ever done that before. Anyway, concept for me to start accumulating is where the market cap has arrived. This is COVID crash-ish. I'm dipping my toes in, and as you can see there, others, the altcoin market's at $227 billion, which is right there. Then giving the actual chart of what it is that I see. Double tap, bull flag, breakout, violent back test, V bottom. And for those who have been around for a very long time, you remember that we have definitely seen these before, which was during the COVID crash of 2020 with the United States stock market, which I'm not a big proponent of being somebody who likes to buy falling knives. It's incredibly dangerous. It can just buttercut right through you. But this was something I was looking for, was the extra dip, right? The fake one, then the real one associated with a narrative, and then at the same time falling right into the bull flag on a violent back test when we were already looking for something like that to show up. So it wasn't a surprise to be seeing that happening. The surprise was just how quickly it came, right? We've had all these discussions and shown examples where it really just gets drawn out for weeks, where you have volatility die out, you have people like the meme coins just kind of die off, then capitulation sets in, then the fake bottom comes in, then the narrative comes in. But of course, we get just hit with massive amounts of liquidations that happen in the market. So then you think to yourself, okay, well, is there something wrong, or can we do this type of correction where it is incredibly violent like this, outside of just saying double tap, bull flag, breakout, back test, violent back test, V bottom? And it's just going back and looking at examples, right? We've looked at this example where it draws itself out and then it goes into capitulation. But you could see this one right in here, the very next one. It's really just that, right? It's super violent, super fast, pulls right back down to the previous high into the bull flag, and then reverses its way back out of there. Very similar to what we see. Very similar to what we see, where it just happens with extreme aggression, and it's very quick. So definitely much faster than I expected for it to come out of here, and well, much more violent than I expected for it to come out of here. Fortunately, I was looking for it. Fortunately, I had the cash on the sidelines ready for it. And fortunately, I did take a shot at it. Now, I did post over here on Twitter this morning and mentioned in Markets in the Morning, now that these bottom sniped re-entries are up 23% on average, I'm risk managing them by selling 20% with stops set below Saturday's low for the remainder to make these re-entries risk-free. Set and forget. Conceptually, with these things being so precise, getting back in there, as the post showed, managing 20% here and cutting it off the table gives the ability to set some stops down below here so that all these entries are risk-free with the remaining 80%. But 80% continues to ride. I don't actually expect this to go back down here again. That's not typically what we have. I had somebody ask in Markets in the Morning, do we think we'll get a second shot at it? if this is the bottom, right? If this is not the beginning of some long, drawn out super bear happening over here in the cryptocurrency market, and if this is just a classic ABC violence, I find it hard pressed for it to be likely that there would be another one just because of what happened. Massive liquidation happens, second massive liquidation happens, and the second one that happens is also associated with a really big fear narrative, right? A really big worry, concern, uncertainty, doubt that getting one more chance without that narrative, it just seems unlikely to me if we're going to bounce out of here and get going that there's going to be another chance. So I just don't think it's going to go under there. And well, if it does, I've got it risk managed appropriately to handle that. As this thing consolidates here in these coming days, I'll be making more entries down here. They won't have the luxury of being as close to the bottom as the first one was. Still risk managing that bottom area, but we have something that very much resembles an ABC correction that has happened here. We've had multiple liquidations. We had the fear narrative come in at the bottom. For me, the optimism is coming back. It feels good to be back. And we'll watch it in the coming days to make sure that things do remain settled down and look for very familiar looking reversal behavior. So all eyes on it here for the next few days to make sure things have settled down. And hopefully that was it. Throughout the market, there was lots of different reactions that happened in there. Some things held up really strong. Some things looked really weak. So we'll have lots of different things to dive into for lots of different assets for videos this week. However, if you're in the belief of this market turning around, which I'm optimistic for it, I've spent a lot of time studying trends of what's been going on in the crypto market for the last couple of months. Today, a newsletter was released that really dives into base. I don't know if you've been hearing people talk about it. I'm bullish on base. But the reality is the metrics show it. The contract deployment, the total value locked, the activity in regards to NFTs, meme coins, tokens, decentralized finance. It's all there. It's moving very rapidly. And we dive into all of that over here in the newsletter that was released. I'm really excited because of the newsletters that you guys have responded really well to, and it's really like focused on developer activity, user activity levels, and there's a lot of data that's been brought in there. And when I've done those, I've had to have help. There's no way I can do it on my own. It takes up so much time and so much effort. So I've been on this like big mission to try to find someone to be able to help me with the newsletters. And I'm super thrilled that TXMC has come on board to help me with newsletters. So something to be able to provide more value to the newsletters for you guys. And this was our first mutual one that we wrote together, where we really dove into the total value lock, the DeFi, the NFTs, the rapid acceleration of user activity levels there on base. And I hear it all the time. I'm bullish on base. And it's like, what do you mean you can't buy that token? And it's the reality of it. It's the ecosystem in there. It's fascinating. It's got a 24-minute audio recording right over here on Substack. It's at blockchainbacker.substack.com. There's a link in the description of this video to the Substack. But for me, the exciting thing was releasing this one today, because this is something I've been doing quietly for months now. So we'll keep an eye on the market. The optimistic blockchain backer is back. And I know you guys have been missing that. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. We'll keep our eyes on things and make sure we're settled down. Otherwise, the first sign of optimism arrived. We've been able to hold here for a couple of days now, and hopefully that continues. So I'll check in with you later. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.